Hello and welcome to our recorded session. Today we will share with you our insights on our ongoing book project about teaching and learning in time of war, Voices for Ukraine. My name is Andrea and my co-presenter is Roxana. On the next slide, I will discuss the outline of our presentation. This presentation reveals the challenges and opportunities that English language teaching and learning bring at a time of war and ongoing crisis. Compelling stories from educators highlight the interconnection of language, culture, emotions, mental health, and technology to adapt and find meaning in teaching at the time of war. Our outline contains the following talking points: aggression against Ukraine, the ICIS TESOL initiative, about the book project, and concluding thoughts. On the next slide, Roxana will introduce the background information about the Russian aggression against Ukraine.
We thought that it is important to provide some background information to support our presentation. And this information presents context for what we will be sharing today. The military aggression against Ukraine began in 2014 with the annexation of the Crimean Peninsula and small parts of Donetsk and Luhansk region. If you can look at the map, you can see those regions that were annexed in 2014 are designated by red borders. At that time, the conflict did not attract a lot of attention of the world media. However, things were different when the world was watching the large-scale invasion of Ukraine that started almost 2 years ago on February 24, 2022. Please note that this presentation is recorded in February. On our screens, we were witnessing devastation and atrocities that were committed by Russian forces. We saw millions of people fleeing the country, children, women, older adults, and international students. We also saw a lot of international solidarity and a lot of support for Ukraine from different parts of the world. Some of us were simply observers witnessing a major devastating war that was unfolding in front of our eyes. And others like me, despite the thousands of miles being away from Ukraine, which is my home country, but also feeling very much closely connected because I have family that lives there, my mother, my sister, and my extended family. This war has led to the destruction, significant destruction of higher education institutions in Ukraine, both in occupied and unoccupied territories. I would like to share some of the numbers, and these are just statistics, but you can see more than 2,000 schools were destroyed, were damaged. More than 400 schools were destroyed. 57 higher education institutions were damaged, 6 were destroyed. Millions were displaced throughout Ukraine, and millions also displaced internationally. More than 1 million students had to flee Ukraine. Some of the images that you see here on the slide, the buildings that are on these images, institutions of higher education in Kharkiv. Kharkiv is the second largest city in Ukraine and is often called the city of students or the capital of students. Also, as you can see, one of the images shows a faculty member who had to sweep classroom for trenches and teaching from the trenches. These are just the numbers and statistics. However, it is important to hear what are stories that behind these numbers. And Andrea will continue sharing about the project that was initiated by Intercultural Communication Intersection of TESOL.
A notable example of a professional development opportunity that played a role in our book project is the virtual forum series, Voices from the Classroom, Teaching in a Time of War, organized by the TESOL Intercultural Communication Intersection. And typically we call these webinars voices because we want to capture the voices and perspectives of the teachers. To our surprise, for the webinars in 2023, we received many proposal submissions on this topic. And due to this popular demand, we organized 2 live webinars. This was the first time we had a webinar series on the same topic. We were deeply moved by these teacher stories, and more importantly, we wanted to bring their stories to the attention of the TESOL field. In this slide, you see 2 posters for our webinars that includes the presenters who were either in Ukraine or were teaching Ukrainian English language learners. Presenters in these webinars, many of whom are the authors in this book, have highlighted the value of humanistic intercultural teaching approaches in the language classroom. Over 100 people have attended the live webinars, and more than 300 have watched the recordings on our YouTube channel. On the next slide, you will see the broader themes that emerged from these webinars. These were the broader themes that emerged from the initial webinar series that we called Voices. They represent the themes, the stories of the teachers, and what motivated us to further explore opportunities for these teachers to share their voices. All presenters in this webinar series advocated for the need for more studies in war zones from teachers' perspectives. On the next slide, Roxana will share more information about the book project.
As Andrea mentioned, we were deeply moved by the experiences of our colleagues in Ukraine and colleagues who were teaching outside of Ukraine, but for Ukrainian students, we were really deeply moved by their experiences, and we wanted to invite more voices to be included in. At that time, it was a book project that we were thinking about. The title for the project, we decided to keep voices as one of the keywords. Voices of courage and vulnerability, stories about teaching English at a society in war. That's the title for the book project. What you see listed, the bullet points, are some of the key topics that we thought were important to be included in the book. The call of proposals went out. We received many submissions. We were able to accept 22 chapters, and we are still in the process of looking at chapters, making revisions, editing them. It was not an easy decision to decide how to split, how to organize all the submissions, what would be the common themes, as all of the themes and topics that we saw in these chapters, they intersect, intertwine. It is impossible to disconnect one from another. Nevertheless, we decided that one of the key ideas and themes that goes through all the chapters, all the submissions, is about adjustment, adaptation that faculty members had to make in order to deal with new, changing, and ongoing challenges. Another major topic focused on building resiliency through pedagogy practices, but also collaboratively with other faculty, collaboratively through professional development, as well as designing collaborative activities that were engaging for their students. A major topic was also trauma-sensitive teaching and learning, and that's where some of the chapters are placed in part 3 of the book. The last component, or the last part of the book, focuses on teaching for Ukraine, and what is meant by that it's written by educators who were virtual educators, US-based educators working with students in Ukraine, or some of those students were also in other places displaced because of war. I will briefly, we don't have a lot of time to dedicate, and we are still in the process of editing chapters, so it is an ongoing process. We will be sharing some of the key ideas as well as share some of the stories or snapshots from stories that teachers had to share with us in these chapters. Adaptation or adapting to new changing situations and complexities of teaching under many emergencies and crises. Some of the common themes present this complex interplay of factors that educators and students have to navigate as they have to continue learning and teachers have to continue teaching. Resilience is one of the key topics. Another topic was integration of ongoing events in teaching. Many teachers were asking questions themselves, what they should include, what should not be included, how to be sensitive in a time that is very challenging. Teachers were coming up with innovative methods. They were relying a lot of communicative based language teaching and learning, despite the fact that often classes were not meeting in person, were not even synchronous when they were online, but they were finding various digital platforms and tools to communicate with students and keep the communication lines open. I would like to share a couple of thoughts, voices, as I said, that fit really well with what I've shared earlier in terms of common themes and topics in this part of the book. As one of the teachers wrote, life continues. We teachers and students understand our mission and never forget that the future of the country depends on us, on our work. With our command of English, we are a bridge between cultures. We have to pave the way to the democratic world. Thus, we try to do our best. However, the next quote shows how all of these practices, all of these experiences are interrupted. And the reality is so that it presents many unordinary situations. We can see more on these slides. These passages reflect, again, questions that faculty were asking, preparing for classes, thinking about to integrate or not to integrate news. And some literature on teaching in the time of crisis or emergencies or in conflict zone suggests that it may not be necessarily the best or most sensitive approach to discuss what is happening, the situation in the news, especially if news are not so positive. However, what faculty that have shared with us their stories and experiences, they said that students ask themselves in many cases, they wanted to discuss, they wanted to hear, but also focus on the future and think positively. The second quote that is on the slide shows that the challenges that students were or had to face when they were trying to connect to classes, and because most of the instruction was virtual at that time. Another major section in the book focuses on collaborations. And in this section, we chose chapters that had a strong focus on collaboration between faculty members so they can focus on prioritizing student-centered learning, creating engaging and interactive learning experiences. And even those experiences where virtually, faculty tried to make them as much engaging as possible. One such example was about collaborative planning between US-based virtual instructor and Ukrainian ESP, English for Special Purposes, faculty who teaches at a law school. The third part in the book focuses on trauma-sensitive teaching and learning. Many chapters deal with discussing specific strategies that faculty learned through professional development and were implementing them in their classes, and they're sharing their experiences, how things were working for them or not working, because nothing can really prepare people for teaching under such challenging circumstances. Some of the most creative, we thought, ideas that faculty shared with us in their stories involved, as for example, this specific project that a faculty member implemented, poetry translation project. It was not a required project, it was extracurricular activity, but every student who was in the course of that professor, they were interested, participated, and I would like to share one of the poems. You can read English translation, and I will read the original version of that stanza in Ukrainian. Хай зійде сонце вранішньо і мирно, ти волелюбна, ти моя сім'я. Живи в країно, ти живи в країно, хай буде доля, як ясна зоря. This poem was translated by a student from Odessa, Христина Пономаренко. I will now transition back to Andrea. Andrea, and she will talk about the fourth part of the book.
The fourth segment is called Teaching for Ukraine, Virtual Educators as a Source of Strength and Empowerment During Challenging Times. This section brings together the perspectives of virtual educators who unpack the role of EFL education with forced refugees from Ukraine and displaced students in Ukraine during the war. The stories in this section are relevant for how teaching influences the well-being and healing process of the students, and educators are in the unique position to conduct research and provide guidance on best practices of working with this population. The authors of this section are teachers who taught English virtually at the onset of the war. They were educators who conducted their projects funded by the U.S. Department of State or non-governmental organizations. The common themes of the chapters in these sections are as follows: tailored approaches to EFL education in conflict zone. The fourth section of the book emphasizes the need for customized teaching methods that consider the unique circumstances of learners affected by war. This includes adapting strategies to cater to the educational, socio-emotional, and psychological needs of the students amidst ongoing conflicts. For example, one chapter includes mindfulness exercises, trauma-informed care, and the cultivation of a growth mindset. Another chapter includes ideas about integrating self-care into lessons through movement breaks, mindfulness activities, optional creative writing tasks, such as poems that were very much appreciated by students. A third theme is the need for comprehensive teacher professional development. There is a focus on the importance of providing educators with training and support to address the challenges of teaching in conflict-affected contexts. Professional development should encompass fostering normalcy, prioritizing student and teacher well-being, and acknowledging the impact of conflict on students and teachers' identity and emotions. And another theme that emerged is innovative teaching strategies and resources. The authors highlight the role of innovative teaching techniques such as remote teaching tools and arts-based methods in supporting language learning and recovery in conflict zones. These strategies aim to provide a safe and supportive environment for students to navigate traumatic experiences and develop essential communication skills. The final theme that emerged is community building and collaboration among educators, students, parents, and external organizations. Creating a sense of belonging and support within educational communities is crucial for fostering resilience, engagement, and healing among students affected by war. And on the next slide, I would like to share a poem by a student. And in this poem, This is from a teacher who occasionally posted news articles on Google Classroom about support for Ukraine, as well as on how Ukrainians supported their soldiers and country. Many of the readings and assignments were optional, and students could choose how they wanted to respond to the articles, if at all. The teacher was very moved by this poem a student wrote about the war and her hopes for post-war Ukraine. Having the opportunity to express her feeling creatively resulted in a heartfelt, powerful poem. And with the student permission, the teacher posted her poem on social media so that its themes of pain and hope could be shared with others. To this day, the teacher keeps a copy as the first page in her planning binder as a daily reminder of the fears and the fortitude of everyday Ukrainians in a world gone mad. On the next slide, Roxana will share concluding thoughts.
What we've shared with you is still work in progress. This project is a huge learning opportunity for both of us, as well as the authors who submitted their chapters to this book. It's important to note that according to the Institute for Economics and Peace, the number of people who live in peace, where there is no conflict, no war, has been decreasing over the last 15 years. We know there are ongoing wars in Syria, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Yemen, conflicts in Afghanistan, in other countries and other parts of the world, and recent Russia's war against Ukraine, as well as Israel and Gaza war, have led to an increasing number of teachers and students working under extremely challenging conditions. Many millions are forcibly displaced and refugees around the world. Not all leave or have opportunity to leave the places. They have to stay where they are. They have to survive, live, and hope for the future. Sharing these experiences is extremely important. We truly believe that, especially as Ukraine continues its fight and the global community's attention fades and shifts to other crises, as conflicts in other places also continuing, it's important to address, it's important to hear voices of teachers in these places. As in our project, we are highlighting experiences of teachers in Ukraine, and we believe that there is a need also to hear and to engage voices from other places. Here I'm sharing, I will not read it, but I would like you to take a look and read it. Another passage quote from one of the authors who contributed to our book. And this quote powerfully shows how we all have multiple identities and how these complex identities intertwine. Teaching English is never neutral practice. It is situated in social, political, historical terrains, and it is impossible to disconnect these aspects from our teaching identities. In these quotes, you can see emotions and political beliefs, they are shared, and we consider these voices to be part of our effort to promote awareness as well as social justice. Now, again.
Okay, we ask that you join the effort to support English language education in times of war. As Roxana mentioned, every voice counts in empowering individuals and communities through education. It is imperative that educators in war zone have access to necessary and specialized training. Through the Voices webinar series and the authors of this book, we heard from teachers that there is a lack of specialized training for educators and also inadequate awareness of the impact of wars on mental health. Therefore, we believe that comprehensive teacher professional development is a solution through self-paced courses, live webinars, but also through research conducted by teachers like the chapters in this book illustrate. And Finally, we would like to thank you for joining our presentation. Please keep an eye for our forthcoming book to be published in October 2024. Please email us if you would like to learn more about this project and would like to know when the book is available. We thank you so much.